Hi, so this video I'm anticipating is going to run long. There is a different kind of cutting and gluing that I'm going to walk you through. So settle in, make sure you have your supplies, you have your notebook ready to go, you have this page on adding and subtracting rational numbers. Of course, you know you're going to need a pair of scissors and some glue, and you're going to need a writing utensil. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to our table of contents. We are adding a new page. It is going to be page 20, and it is going to be adding and subtracting rational numbers. And this goes along with N 2.3 and 2.5. It's really going to be a review of things that you already know, but they are new things, and so it does take us time because we have to stop and think through the steps, and so I wanted to do some examples with you. So page 20, adding and subtracting rational numbers. Now that we have it in our table of contents, flip to your 2 page, and it's going to be part of this 2.3, 2.5 notes, and we are going to be also talking about operations with rational numbers. So it's kind of a combination of both. There's really not anything to write there. You might add page 20, but there's going to be other pages as well. And then flip to page 20. Of course, that is going to follow page 18 with exponents, 19 with absolute value, and the book that you did. You should have taken an assessment after this, and then you're ready for page 20. Let's talk about the paper that we're going to cut for a moment. I said it was going to be a little bit different, and one I cut had, recycled stuff on the back, and so I wanted to cut this and show you. You can cut your title page out, and obviously it goes at the very top. If you don't want this page and you just want to hand write it on the top, you can do that instead of having this little badge there. But that is the title, but make sure you push it all the way to the top. Another easy thing to cut out is this folder of hints. When I talk to you about this, I'm going to be sure to explain, because I think when you read these on your own, it can be a little confusing. But this makes like a little folder that you would fold up. And we're just going to put just a dab of glue on the back, and then we would glue that in place. And then the next thing that we have is a little hint. And it's like a little mini foldable all on its own. So I'm cutting out the hints and trimming that up really good. And what you're going to do is that you're going to fold the hints down, and see on here we're going to write steps to follow. Then we would put a little dab of glue on the back of that, and we would glue it down, and then you can open up and have your steps like so. So that is the part that goes at the top of your notebook. And finally, you're left with this piece. So this is what's tricky. So when I'm going to cut very carefully down this line first. This is what I'm afraid that you guys might accidentally mess up. And then I'm going to cut down this line right here. Really careful, just past the glue. All right, so then I have them separate. Now I can go ahead and trim them out, cutting on the solid lines. Okay, I have the glue gray to the left of me. So I'm going to, again, trim my piece out, and you can see where these glue says to go together, but I'm not going to glue this. Just hold on. I might regret this. If you are super neat with glue, you might try it, but even I struggled with using just the tiniest amount of glue and not making a mess. But I'm going to line these up just like so. So you really want to like stack them. And then I'm not going to glue it. I'm going to get a stapler and I'm going to staple just 3 times on that edge. And then I'm going to fold up so that I have a nice crease. Maybe fold it back. Okay? And then right in between, I'm going to cut through all 3 and I'm going to stop so that these pages will flip back to show the steps. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to cut in between them all the way across. When you have that done, now you're ready to glue these pieces into your interactive notebook. When we have a cutting day, it can get really messy in the room, so please clean up all of your mess as you go. All right, so you can see that I'd already started. I have my title pushed all the way to the top because I want everything to be able to fit on my page. I went ahead and glued my steps to follow, so I do have my steps to refer to. I'm going to glue my hints in. Now, my hints are kind of messy because I used recycled paper, and so that's okay. I can have part of lyrics there, that will be all right. And then finally, I have my book that I've made that I'm going to now use just a tiny bit of glue only on that back edge. And I'm going to glue it in place. All right, now we have our book together and it's time to work. We're going to start tackling these questions, and I'm going to look at the first question. And if you look at your hints, they tell you to add and subtract positive and negative fractions the same way you would whole number integers. So when I look at this, I think to myself, I know that I don't like to subtract integers, and neither does Adeline. So what does she do? She would take her fraction or any value, any rational number, and she would add a line, because she knows that we have to add the opposite when we deal with integers of any kind. We're also going to convert rational numbers to the same form to add or subtract. Also, in our steps to follow, I can ask myself, are the numbers in the same form? Yeah, they're both fractions. Are negative subtractions used? Well, that means I had to add a line, but the number wasn't negative. This was negative. And do they have a common denominator? Well, I'm not going to worry about making them have the same denominator because I understand the butterfly form. And I know that what I can do is I could say negative 6/8 plus negative 4/5. Multiply across and multiply across the bottom, making my butterfly. So 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times negative 4 is negative 32. 5 times negative 6 is negative 30. Bring up my operation. Negative 30 plus negative 32. Signs are the same, so I add the numbers and keep the sign. So I have negative 62/40. So after adding those together, I get negative 62/40. However, I want to reduce that. I'm going to reduce by 2, and I'm going to get what's half of negative 62. You can use a calculator, but negative 31 and half of 40 is 20. So my answer is just fine being negative 31/20, or I could rewrite that and say 20 goes into 31 one whole time, leaving 11 out of 20 left over, and it is negative. So you can leave your answer as negative 31/20ths, which is an improper fraction. You can simplify it into a mixed number and say it's negative 1 and 11/20ths. But I'm also going to redo this problem, and I'm going to show you another thing I would have done. When I had negative 6/8 minus 4/5, I would still do add a line, or KFC, but then I would have box topped this fraction and got negative 0.75 plus box top this and had negative 0.8. Changing them both to decimals and then simply lining up my decimals, negative 0.75, negative 0.8, signs are the same. I'm going to just add, lining up my decimals, keep the sign, and end up with negative 1.55. Now, if you go back to the answer we had here, and I said 31 divided by 20 and I box top that, I still would have got 1.55 and kept the negative. You are not allowed to use negatives on a calculator, and that's why I did that. You would have just known to do a negative. Let's look at our next question. I'm going to switch to a pen so that you can see it better. The next problem has a decimal and a fraction. And I know here it says, are the numbers in the same form? Here they are not. I have a decimal and a fraction. They're in different forms. So I need to change my numbers to the same form. Well, that is not going to be a problem because I know how to go from a fraction to a decimal. So I'm going to say 3.1 plus 8/4. I'm going to change them both to decimals. So I'm going to leave this 3.1 plus, I'm going to change 8/4 to a decimal. If you box top 8 divided by 4, you'll get 2, which is the same as 2.0. Since I'm going to be lining up my decimals, 3.1, 2.0, and look, they were both positives, so I'm just going to do the straight addition step and get 5.1. Let's go on to the third problem. 24 minus negative 9/8. What is the first thing I'm going to do here? That's right. I'm going to add a line, change the sign. This is now going to be a positive 9/8. So my real problem now is 24 plus 9/8. Various ways for me to work that. I could just say 24 plus, take my fraction and box top it and get 1.125, because I know 1/8 is 125, it's in your FDP chart. And add my whole numbers, 24 and 1 is 25 plus 0.125. Again, if you had your calculator, you could have said 24 plus 1.125 equals 25 and 125 thousandths. So very, very simple. I can't imagine that you would have a teacher that would expect you to change the whole number to a fraction. So we're going to leave it at that. Another easy problem here. Decimal and a natural number or a whole number. And so this just has a subtraction with integers there. Remember when it said that, does it have a negative subtracted? Yeah, it does, but that's not going to throw me. 5.8 minus negative 2. What are we going to do? Yep. Change it to add the opposite. The opposite of negative 2 is 2. So we just have 5.8 plus 2, which is 7.8. Don't you love these easy ones? and finally another decimal and fraction. Now I am going to talk a minute about this one like I did the first one, because I know when I see this, I can reduce that fraction. I know that 2/6 reduces to 1/3, and I know that 1/3 is that 0.3333. It just goes on and on and on. So I could come back here and I could indeed say 4.3 plus 0.333, that continues. And if I line up my decimals, I would get 4.6 and then the 3 that repeats. And you can do that in your calculator. But I am going to take a moment and work this problem, changing this to a fraction. So when I had 4.3, I know I could put a 1 under the decimal, fill in a 0 for every digit, and change that to 4 3/10 plus 2/6, which I really know that that is 1/3. 4 3/10 is the same as saying 4 plus 3/10. Again, plus, and you can say this is 2/6 or 1/3, would work out the same. I'm going to use my butterfly method to add the fractions first. 10 times 1 is 10, and 3 times 3 is 9. 9 plus 10 is 19. 10 times 3 is 30. So now I have 4 plus these, which added to be 19, 30. So I could get the fraction 4 and 19/30. Do you want to test me? Let's grab a calculator. I betcha it's going to be the same value. Let's look at 19 divided by 30. 0.633333, which is what we said. Add the 4 back to it, and you get 4.6, and then the 3 repeats, as you can see. All right, this was a lot of work, guys, and we should practice some of these problems. So get some scratch paper out, use your notes, and let's answer some questions. If you have any questions, remember, this isn't a test. Always ask for help.